Hi and welcome to this slightly more off-beat episode of a podcast on Digibois with just me, Whatta. This show, I don't know if I'll make any more of them or if it's just a one-off thing, but I wanted to really have a discussion not about any piece of art or any specific piece of Digibois content, but more so about the very act of being a Digibois fan and some of the things I've noticed in terms of common characteristics and common values that are held by this community. In a recent episode of Digidoes Life, which is the podcast that you can get at a $15 Patreon tier, Digi discussed meeting a fan in a queue for an event. And among all the people lining up for signings, people that didn't seem like they were that into Digibois content, he could tell from afar that this guy was into him as a personality. This is one of those real dedicated Digibro fans. And something really spoke to me in this description of this guy with intense eyes, and I looked to him that this is a guy who just knows what the mindset of a person of our community is like. And it's generally a bunch of people that resemble a specific set of traits that Digibro expresses in his art. Because all of us are different, and all of us have different nuances to us, but I really think that the main points really keep us together, and that is the thing that I value so much in this Discord, in this community. So, one of the first points that I really feel is common for most of us is the feeling of being one of these kind of people. The feeling of having an idea of our identity as a sort of outsider. This would be represented as the gay aspect on the Gay and Dead album, and also in general the idea of being boogie, not as something to be consumed in a boogie way, but being a boogie person compared to the rest of society. Being a kind of person that's hard to get into, who doesn't make a lot of friends very easily, but makes very close connections with the people who actually manage to get into one of us. Digi explained on several places that he doesn't really feel that he has an identity. But what he then went on to explain would be that the lack of identity is an identity. And I resonate a lot with this because what I experience we identify with is our art, or if we don't make any art ourselves, the art that we consume. When I was growing up, I was really into Pokemon, and it was something that I had a close personal connection to, this art form that was the Pokemon world. As a 4-year-old, I started collecting these little discs with Pokemon pictures on them. And then, as I moved to Sweden when I was 7, I got into the video games, starting with Sapphire, and then slowly moving on from there and really getting enthralled in this landscape that was Pokemon. Maybe one reason that this happened to me so strongly was because I was moving quite a bit when I was this young, between countries and also between cities. And no matter where I came, the other boys in the area would be into Pokemon. This was around year 2000, 2001. Later on, 2002, 2003, I think this was still true. But as I hit 4th grade, and I remember very strongly being in 4th grade when I was 10 years old, suddenly no one was into Pokemon anymore. And because I lacked an identity as a person and instead identified through the art I liked, while other kids could let go of Pokemon, I could not. I saw this value still so clearly. It was so integral to who I was. I was the kid who knew things about Pokemon. I was the kid who, even before I had the game myself, and before I even knew anything about any 3rd generation Pokemon, kids who had Sapphire before I did would come up to me and ask me if this was a good Pokemon or this was a good Pokemon, because they trusted that for some reason I could judge it by watching the design, because I knew so much about Pokemon for being a little shitty 7-year-old kid. And it was really the source of my self-value back then. And this would sort of continue. As I got older, my own interest in Pokemon remained, but I started getting into other things. When I was 13 to 15, I was really into shonen anime and manga. I read Naruto and One Piece. I didn't watch that much anime of them. I watched few anime, but mostly I read manga at this point. I remember reading all of Shaman King and always having that as my special thing, that when everyone else was maybe catching up on Naruto, I could be like, I read this Shaman King thing, it's a bit more special. And fewer people have heard of it, and I remember feeling really good about that uniqueness there was to what I had read. And also really liking Shaman King. I thought it was a stellar manga. I would go to the local library and I would read every physical manga they had, especially the ones translated to Swedish, because back then there was a really good Swedish translation company called Bonnier, and they were doing fantastic One Piece translations, far better than any English ones I've ever found. And they had a really good Dragon Ball translation, so I could finish all of Dragon Ball, the 42 volumes that are the main Dragon Ball amount. And that was all just in the library, so I would go and read it there. I remember reading Kuroro and some Inuyasha, all translated to Swedish really well. So I had this knowledge of things that other people really didn't, and that's how I could find value, because I was socially awkward and I couldn't really make friends normally. I was a weird person. I was boogie. So in order for me to be interesting to other people, I had to have knowledge that they didn't have. And the quest for this knowledge became a medium which I would identify through. I feel like I'm repeating myself. So generally what I believe that a lot of people in this Discord and in this community feel in a similar way. It's the observation I've made. A lot of us care a fuck ton about the art we like, and we also care a lot about the fact that we can argue about that art and share our opinions about that art and really explain to people why we like it and explain intricate details of it. Watching Digibois do a commentary video over the first episode of K-On!, I'm struck with how many small little details he knows about that show because he loves it so much. A show he's seen countless times, or at least that episode he's seen countless times. And I think that any one of us could do a, maybe not as well performed, but probably equally wholehearted attempt with our favorite anime. I mean, I could talk about Fooly Cooly for hours on end. And I believe that it is this shared experience of connecting with art in this way, in this very self-identifying way, that we sort of found ourselves through the art we liked, that we can really see in each other, for one, the value that we hold in terms of being authorities on our different favorites. I mean, talking to Tony in the Discord about the Monogatari series is eye-opening to me, because while that show is not one of my absolute favorites, some parts are, but he can talk about it to a much deeper level, so I found a lot of value in him because he's sitting on a lot of insight that I don't have. And that's entertaining, if not just interesting. Curiosity will make me hunt for this kind of experience. And these people can provide that experience. I also believe that another feature of the people in this community is that we like to keep things very real. A lot of us have been outsiders for a lot of our lives. Like, some of us haven't. You can take one of my friends in the Discord, Guns, has had a lot of experiences inside of the mainstream cultures, but and has sort of found his boogie later on in life. But let's not beat around the bush. A lot of us are nerds, and a lot of us were very bullied. Digibois was, I was, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people were as well. But I believe there are different kinds of bullied people. Some bullied people take on a lot of the guilt themselves and sort of internalize the bullying. Other people act out against it and become bullies themselves in return. Other people break down completely under it. And then there's people like everyone, I think, who went through this kind of experience in the Discord is, and that's the kind of kid who got bullied and really fought it, for one, partially understandable and also very interesting and something to argue about and something to talk about, something to express opinions around. I think most of us would probably be the kind of people who, if someone called us out for something or tried to be mean, would start to talk back and defend ourselves with words and really try to explain things logically and try to make these people understand our situation and our point of view. I remember when I had been bullied from grade 4 to grade 6, mainly over my Pokemon interest. I went to a new school in year 7 of school in Sweden, and my mom had been telling me, Joe, hide the fact that you're a Pokemon fan now. You don't need to talk about this. You don't need to let the other kids know. You can have a new start. But for me, that would be impossible, because then I would be lying about who I was. So the first thing I did, introductions on the first day, was that I explained to everyone that I'm a massive Pokemon nerd, and would you guess it? I didn't have that nice of an experience in that class either. They also thought I was a weird ass. Doesn't help that I was socially awkward to a T throughout most of my growing up, and still am to some degrees. I I think that a lot of us had that kind of thought process around it. That if other people don't want to be with us, they don't need to. It's my way or the highway, as someone might put it. We appreciate the friends we got all the more because of this, but I don't think a lot of us went hunting for friends. We sort of just took the ones we got. And I think a lot of us became centers of our friendship groups because of this. I know a lot of times Digi has explained how he has always been someone that people looked up to because he was such an expressive, interesting person who talked about his opinions so loudly and always went out there to showcase who he was. And that's the feeling I get with a lot of people in this community, and a thing that I identify with myself a lot as well. So really, like for example, with me, a lot of my friends know each other because they knew me. And even people I don't talk to these days might still be friends with each other originally coming through me. And I think this is a common feature around us because we are so boogie, just like boogie art, boogie people are better at creating deeper connections with those who actually connect with us. I really appreciate this Discord and this community a lot. Not just because it's a fun place to hang out all day, but because it gives me a sort of mirror to look at myself through. Because I see a lot of things in myself in these people that hang out in this area. No matter how talky and bantery we can become, no matter how much we might disagree with each other about what anime is good at the moment, no matter any of that, I really feel a connection with this community in a way I haven't felt since I was on the Super Skarmory forums back when I was 10 years old. It's just this feeling of people who act alike, like similar things, and have shared experiences, finding each other through some fucked up miracle. And this one guy in America who we all really started appreciating. I am a Digibro fan, but more so, I feel these days that I am a part of the Digibro-inspired movement. Something I'm not sure actually exists, but it's definitely something I feel is real inside of me. And inside of people I talk to in this community. And I think that's really fucking cool. Bye.